All right, so I just want to expand a little bit on the last Instagram post I made in a forum where that might be a bit more appropriate. So I had a hitter who was running out of barrel on balls that were away, like away, right? Like not outer third, but like outer fifth, right? Not exactly uncommon. Happens for different reasons with different guys, but for him, what's happening is the hands were getting kicked outside the lead forearm, which isn't the end of the world as long as they come back and set the right line. But for him, they just weren't right. So if we think about our lead forearm, what it really does for us is it sets the potential for direction. Now I use the word potential intentionally because just because I set this lead forearm on this on this line doesn't mean I'm going to follow it, but it gives me a chance, right? There's a lot more factors at play here, but if I make my turnaround from here, I have zero chance of working along this line. So this is the best think of the lead form as setting your best possible direction, right? So best I can do here is work here, right? And as you can imagine, you're going to run out of barrel on balls that are away, right? Whereas here, I at least have a shot to work through this line and hold direction for a decent period of time. Now, for this hitter, didn't mean to do that. That was unintentional. For this hitter, we started talking a bit more about his back foot, right? So, and what's really cool is watching him make this adjustment on the fly in the moment. So I'll just run through this quick and just pay attention to the foot here, right? So if I play this here, what you'll see right there, right? So I'm gonna rewind it again, and you'll see that move he makes right early on there, right? So actually, I zoom in here, and you can see it even clearer right there. So he makes this adjustment on the fly, which is cool to me because it shows the hitter knows what he should be feeling and what he shouldn't be feeling. So he has that, whatever you want to call it, proprioceptive awareness to be able to make that adjustment, right? Which is really important, right? So he makes this adjustment with the back foot. Now, why is that relevant? So what he's doing here is he feels that he doesn't have, see how this peels up here in the beginning, right? So this is before he makes the adjustment, right? So this is met head, right? Ball of the foot does not really have contact with the ground here in this position. So what we need to have in ideally in our setup is going to be a relationship with the ground in which we have our inside foot contacts, namely the met head here and the medial heel here. Now, why is that important? When we stride, whatever your stride is, a heel raise, a knee to knee, a leg kick, there's every variation of the stride imaginable. All a stride is the sending of energy and momentum from this side to this side, right? And it should occur within a tight window, right? It's a tight window move, but it will be energy going from this side to this side. Now, it's not exactly two dimensional like this is, I'm making it look, but for the purpose of this, it's just easier to see. So just think of it as working energy or momentum from your lead side to your back side so that it can be stored, sent where you want it, and then basically reversed back once that potential energy is created. So that's what a stride essentially is. So even before we make our stride, we see some pretty stark differences in setup just from this subtle move we make to find the right contacts in the right foot before we get going. Now on the left we have a swing where we don't do this. On the right we have the swing where we accomplish this on the fly. This is taken after he kind of lands that move, right? So differences in the setup here just from that. So we have a couple things here. Number one, what stands out is how much thinner this right side now is, right? So here we see a right lower abdomen that's been very widened. We have this right ISA that's being spun out into ER. Not the case here. That ISA holds. And we have this right leg that's spun out as well. Right leg is now held into IR as we capture the foot contacts and we allow this kind of energy to travel up. And we see with that, which is always interesting, the barrel, as tends to happen, also starts to tick up, which is an interesting proxy for what the for what our guts are doing, right? So what you'll see is as the guts get elevated, the barrel tends to get elevated too. So we're not as heavy on this side. So just think about like if you're heavier and heavier and heavier on your back side, it's going to take more and more work to basically tick that barrel up. So that's what you'll sometimes see when something like this happens. And then we see the compensatory bend from up top on this right side where, yes, this is spun out into ER. We're spun out into ER, but we have to find the ground. So we have this kind of top-down strategy where we try and pull ourselves down from up here, and we see this right elbow drop in relation to the left, whereas this kind of evens out here as everything is able to work up. And volume gets pushed up because of the shape we're able to have down here to push the volume up, right? So this is all pretty cool stuff. And we have now on the right, we have a backside that is set up well to accept energy from the front side as we make our move. Now we'll see what happens on the left when we don't establish that. As soon as this left side gets unweighted, so what happens is as soon as our lead side unweights, our backside is going to begin to weight. So essentially we're moving more and more toward, we're increasing the internal rotation demand as this front side unweights more and more. So what we'll see is a pretty immediate compensations as soon as this left side begins to unweight on the left. So we're not even going to pick up. We're just going to start to unweight, and we immediately see the move, right? And we're talking about the left side here. So this lead side starts to unweight, and we see that right side already getting buried. So we start to move into this valgusy knee on the right side as soon as this starts to unweight. All that is we can't acquire the shape, the internal rotation shape, to apply downforce, right? So we're going to need to try and artificially create it. So this kind of comes down and in without the relationship with the ground that we want here to hold this down and in. So that happens right off the bat. Gets worse as the IR demand increases. And we'll see this kind of hip hikey move where that left hip is higher than the right hip. So it's not so much a left hip moving up as it is a right, as it is basically getting smushed down on that right side. So all the volume that was in our setup down here basically gets pushed down and forward on that right side further. And we'll see this twisty rib cage sort of thing here, right? So it's like this right lower rib cage gets twisted out or twisted in, and from here we're going to have to definitely untwist our way out of this, right? So on this side we see some pretty big differences. Hips are level as we're able to establish the internal rotation with this backside. And what's really cool is what we see in the lead forearm, which is going back to where we started. So we'll notice this is two-dimensional, right? And it's a face-on view, so we can't really see where the hand is in relation to the elbow. But what we can see from this view is the length of the forearm. So we'll see how the forearm appears much longer on the right side. And we can tell, well, from this angle, what that means is that the hand is just not as far away from the body, right? So on the left here, we do have this hand way outside the elbow here compared to here where this is holding nice and tight, which is the big issue that he has with his direction is this lead forearm direction. He never really pulls these back in to give himself a chance to work in the right direction. Now, why is that, and how the hell does it relate to the back foot? So going back to what I just discussed, as far as right when this left side unweights, what happens with the right side when we don't have this back foot here? So again, we get this essentially right side that gets pushed down and forward. So what we want when we stride is a backside to delay and a lead side to overcome. We don't have that strategy here. So what's happening is this side is actually going down and forward as we want it to delay. So we're going to have to magnify our strategy on the lead side to try and basically accomplish what we want. So we're going to pin this left upper arm to try and get us across into this backside that doesn't want to delay. So we pin that thing in real tight, right? So that thing is compressed on our rib cage now to try and get us to delay that right side, magnifying the lead side strategy. To accomplish that, so you can imagine, as soon as I pin that thing in, where's my left hand now in relation to my elbow? Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out. Now, we also have this right upper thorax strategy that's going to make it even tougher once this happens to get it back in, right? So we have this, as I mentioned earlier, this this kind of twisting through the rib cage here. So we have this E-art or spun out ISA on this right side, and what you'll see here is this anterior orientation in the right upper thorax, where this side, this basically just, as you see this shoulder, right, come kind of up and over, right? So we're creating a lot of compression on this right upper thorax, not going to allow that space to give until, well, too late, or not at all in this case. And so imagine this left lead arm pinned, that hand staying outside that lead or that lead elbow, and now an inability to get that back inside because of this compression in the right upper thorax. So if you get here, you can potentially get yourself back, right? But with this added compression, the right upper thorax basically pushing that, you can think of it as like that right hand not really being able to give way very well. And so you just don't have a chance to work back into a favorable position from here. Because again, you can get into some some disadvantageous positions and work your way through them. But what this right upper thorax compression is doing is not going to allow him to get back online. So all of this, again, relates to what's happening down here, which I think is very interesting. That one small tweak allowed us to make the change in the lead forearm that allowed for the potential to hold direction better and ultimately allow us better plate coverage.